Epasa Moto is angry. Oh. This is what everyone says when Mount Fakui erupts. Yet, every year, people travel from across the world every February to witness and participate in the Mount Cameroon Race of Hope, climbing up Mount Faku. We all have heard the stories about the magic stick of the mountain and how we never see it twice at the same spot. And Epasa Moto, the deity king of Mount Faku. This is the story of Epasa Moto. And so again, as the clouds gather around the peak that watches over us all, a secret buried like a seed in the ash. It may sleep, but when the fire mountain speaks, everything planted in the seed will burn. In the beginning, before the great mountain breathed fire, the land was flat and fertile, stretching from the great river to the sea. The people of the land, the Bakweri, lived in peace. They were led not by a king, but by a great hunter and farmer named Moto. He was not the tallest nor the loudest, but he carried a silence within him that was deep like a forest pool. His strength was in his arms, which could fell a giant tree, and his heart, which was as wide as the sky. He provided for all. His hunting spears never missed. His yam farms yielded mounds that fed every family. Moto had one treasure above all, a magic plantain shoot given to him by the earth spirit herself. This plantain was not for eating. It was the calabash of trust. It was green and vibrant, and as long as Moto cared for it with a true heart, his people would know peace, rain would come in season, and the soil would remain generous. He carried it with him everywhere, a symbol of his covenant with the land. Moto took a wife, Liangeli. Her beauty was like the moon on Lake Barumbi. Her laughter was the sound of the river over stones. Moto loved her with the whole of his true heart. He built her a fine compound in a place called Mokunda at the foot of the rolling hills. He showered her with gifts, ivory bracelets, spotted leopard skins, pots so fine you could see the sky in them. But Moto's work was the work of the land. He would rise before dawn to hunt the forests that climbed the hills. He would spend days clearing new fields for the community. Liangeli, in her fine compound, began to feel a loneliness as deep as a dry well. She would watch Moto leave, his broad back disappearing into the trees, the sacred plantain shoot always at his side. She grew to resent the plantain. She grew to resent his silence. She grew to resent the very land that claimed his time. In a neighboring valley lived a man named Mokwate. He was not a great hunter. He was not a farmer. He was a talker, a weaver of words. His hands were soft, but his tongue was clever. He saw Liangeli's loneliness from across the stream. He began to visit Mokunda when Moto was a wee. He did not bring meat or yams. He brought gossip. He brought flattery. He brought songs with no meaning but sweet sound. He told Liangeli her beauty was wasted on a man who spoke to trees more than to her. He told her a woman of her grace should be served, not left to guard an empty hut. At first, Liangeli turned him away, but the loneliness echoed, and Mokwate's words were like honey filling the hollow space. She began to listen. She began to smile. She began to save the choicest pieces of meat from Moto's hunt for Mokwate's visits. One afternoon, as the sun hung heavy, Mokwate found her pounding cassava. "Why do you work?" he asked, leaning on the doorpost. Liangeli said, "Moto provides." But her voice was weak. "He provides meat," Mokwate whispered, stepping closer. "But who provides the fire to cook it? Who provides the song to eat it by? He gives you a compound. I would give you a throne." That was the day the balance shifted. That was the day Liangeli took the first step on the path of the secret. She accepted a bracelet from Mokwate, a thin, tinkling thing of copper. She hid it in a broken pot behind the hut. The deception was a seed, and it took root. Moto would return, tired, smelling of earth and leaf. He would lay a gazelle at her feet. He would smile his quiet smile. He would check the magic plantain shoot, whispering to it. It remained green, for it measured Moto's heart, not his. The hunt was long, he would say. You are tired, she would reply, not meeting his eyes. She served him food and shared his bed. Yes, Beans was warmed, but her mind was across the stream on clever words and sweet touches. Mokwate grew bold. He no longer waited for Moto to eat deep in the forest. He came when Moto was just beyond the first hill. Liangeli's heart would beat like a trapped bird. The thrill of the secret became a second life. She and Mokwate laughed at Moto's silence. They called him the quiet ox. They planned a future they could never have. When will you tell him? Mokwate asked one day, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. Tell him what? Liangeli pretended not to understand. That you are mine, that we will leave this dusty village. We will go to the coast. We will trade with the sailors. You will wear gold, not ivory. And the plantain? She asked, a cold fear touching her for the first time. A weed, Mokwate scoffed. We will throw it in a river. But Liangeli knew the plantain was not a weed. It was the soul of the land. To abandon it was to curse yourself. She pushed the thought away. She buried it under more sweet words, under more secret touches. The seasons turned. Moto sensed the change, not in his plantain. It was still green, still strong, but in the air of his own home. Liangeli's laughter was too high when he returned. Her eyes were too quick, too bright. The hearth felt cold, even with fire. He asked her once as they shared an evening meal, "Is there a sickness in your heart, Liangeli?" She jumped as stung. No sickness, just the heat, the long days. Moto watched her. He said nothing more. His silence now was a weight, not a comfort. One morning, Moto prepared to leave for a long hunt. An elephant had been seen on the high slopes. He would be gone for 3 suns. Take care of the home, he told her. He touched the leaf of the sacred plantain. It was warm, pulsing with a slow, steady life. I will, she said, her voice a thin shell. As soon as his form vanished into the green, Mukushte arrived. He brought palm wine, he brought promises. This is the time, he said, his eyes gleaming. He is far. Let us celebrate our life now. Let us feast as if we are already free. Liangeli, giddy with the secret and the wine, agreed. She cooked the best of the dried meat. She brought out the hidden delicacies. They ate, they drank, they laughed loud in the compound that Moto built. Mukwate, drunk on wine and ambition, stood in the center of the compound. I am the chief here now, he shouted to the empty huts. The quiet ox is gone. The power is here with me. He stormed to where the sacred plantain sat in its special place, its leaves reaching for the sun. And this ugly thing, this symbol of his dull life, he reached out a clumsy hand to grab it. No, Liangeli cried, a flash of ancestral fear cutting through her drunkenness. But it was too late. Mokwate's fingers, stained with palm wine, closed around the stem of the plantain. And the plantain shuddered. A wave of cold passed through the compound. The laughter died in their throats. The leaves of the plantain, always a vibrant green, dulled at the touch. A single leaf turned yellow, then brown, and crumbled to dust. Far away on the high slopes, Moto was tracking the elephant. He felt it, a pain sharp and deep in the center of his chest, as if a trusted spear had been plunged into his back. He stopped. He dropped to one knee. He looked back towards Mukunda. He saw no movement. He had no morning songbird. But he felt the calabash of trust crack. The hunt was over. He turned for home. His steps, usually so light for a man of his strength, were heavy. The forest seemed to watch him. The sky darkened. Back in Mukunda, fear was replaced by joy. Mukwati sobered quickly. "It is nothing," he said, his voice shaky. But Leangeli stared at the dust of the fallen leaf. She knew, the land knew, the covenant was broken.
"You must go," she whispered, her voice so raw. "Now, before he returns." Mokwate, with his bravado gone, needed no second telling. He fled, stumbling towards the stream. Liangeli walked frantically. She cleansed the compound. She hid the wine pots. She swept the footprints. She tried to pour water on the sacred plantain to revive it, but the coldness in its stem remained. She sat alone in the terrible quiet, waiting for the axe to fall. Moto did not return at dusk. He did not return under the moon. Liangeli began to hope. Perhaps he would not come until morning. Perhaps the elephant led him further. But Moto was coming. He was walking through the night. He was not running. The pain in his chest was cooling, hardening into something else. A great, terrible understanding. The green shoot in his heart care was wilting. He knew what that meant. There is only one thing that can break the calabash of trust, a betrayal in the home it shelters. He reached the outskirts of Mokonda as the first grey light touched the sky. He saw no movement. He heard no morning bird song. The world was holding its breath. He entered his compound. It was clean, too clean. The air smelt of fear, not of home. Liangeli stood by the hearth, pretending to stir ashes but had no fire. She said, "You returned early." Her voice was a dry leaf. The hunt was unsuccessful, Moto said. His voice was flat, a stone falling into deep water. He walked past her. He went straight to the sacred plantain. He saw the brown dust at its base. He saw the dullness in its leaves. He placed his hand on its stem. He felt the betrayal, not as an idea, but as a physical truth. He saw the hidden wine pot, poorly concealed. He saw the extra sleeping mat still holding the impression of another body. He turned to look at his wife. She could not lift her eyes from the ground. And in that moment, Epasa Moto, the one who shakes the mountain, awoke. The quiet farmer, the generous hunter, was gone. What remained was the spirit of the land itself, wronged in its very heart. His body began to grow, not like a man grows, but like a shadow lengthened at sunset. His feet pressed into the earth of his compound. The ground groaned. Yet Liangeli, and his voice was not a voice. It was the sound of bold as grinding deep in the earth. She looked up then, and she saw not her husband, but a force. Her knees gave way. "You planted a secret in my home," the earth voice said. "You watered it with lies. You let it grow in the shadow of my trust." He took one step towards her. The ground cracked. A fissure opened, sneaking from his foot towards the heart. "You have broken the calabash. You have poisoned the well." He raised his arms not to strike her, but in a gesture of immense sorrowful finality. As he did, the hills behind him began to rise. The land itself was responding to his anguish. The gentle slope shuddered and pushed upwards, reaching for the sky. "Let my home cannot be pure, then let it be a monument for all time. Let my pain become a landmark for all men and women to see. Let every man and woman who sees it remember the cost of a broken trust." He stamped his foot. That was the moment the world changed. The earth roared. The ground beneath Mukunda convulsed. It was not an earthquake from below. It was a transformation from within. The compound, the huts, the storage bins all began to sink. At the same time, the land around Moto erupted lifted upwards. Stones thrust through soil. Forests were lifted into the air. The sky filled with dust and the screams of animals. Liangeli, crying out for a forgiveness that was 2 centuries too late, was swallowed by the sinking earth. Mokwate, who had been hiding by the stream, watched in terror as the very valley he stood in tilted. The water rushed away and the ground opened beneath him. He fell into the darkness. And Moto, Epasa Moto, his body fused with the rock, his arms became ridges, his head the highest peak, his craving heart the molten fire at the core. He became the mountain, tall, silent, powerful, watching over the land forever. The great landslide of his grief buried the village of lies. From his sides grew new fertile slopes, and where the sacred plantain had fallen, a new grove sprang from the ash, a grove of magical plantains at a place called a tongol, a piece of the original covenant preserved, a symbol that truth, though buried, can lead a seed for the righteous to find. The people who came after the Bakweri, they knew, they told their children, that mountain is not just rock, it is our ancestor. His name is Epasa Moto. He shakes when he remembers the betrayal. He breathes fire when the pain is too great. He is our warning and our protector. The man who was wrong became the mountain that shelters us. And so to this, when a new chief is chosen, he must perform the sacred rite. He journeys to Hitongol. He finds the grove from the original plantain. He must take a sucker from that plant and care for it with a true heart. For he is not just a ruler, he is the keeper of the Calabash of trust. He is the one who must never let the secret seed take root. He must always remember the mountain is watching. And so, again, the ancestors remind us through Epasa Moto, trust is the soil of the community. A betrayal planted in secret is a poison in that soil. It may feed a lonely flower for a season, but its roots will crack the very foundations of your wall. The mountain does not rage against the single lie. It transforms under the weight of a broken covenant. For when the home is false, the very earth will rearrange itself to teach the lesson forever. Guard your heart's truth, for it is the only thing that can keep the ground steady beneath your feet. After watching to the end, tell me, if you were in Liangeli's youth, would you have spoken the truth to Moto where you first felt the loneliness, or would you too have been tempted by the sweet word across the stream? Let's see your thoughts in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share for more stories from the foot of the great mountain.